Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this. You're outdoors, huge pot steaming away. That amazing smell of spice and seafood filling the air, people gathered all around. You know the scene, right? A real Louisiana crawfish boil.
It really is. It's more than just cooking food. It's a whole social event. And the process itself, it's pretty specific, often refined over, well, generations.
Absolutely. And today, that's exactly what we're digging into. We're doing a deep dive using some great source material. It's actually an audio guide, somebody walking us through their Louisiana-style boil, step by step as they do it.
Yeah, this isn't some chef in a test kitchen. This is like real world knowledge, someone showing you how they get it done this particular way.
Exactly. So our mission here is to really pull out the key techniques, the ingredients they use, and maybe most importantly, the practical tips and the sort of why behind the choices they make in this specific boil. So by the end, you should have a really clear picture of how this whole thing unfolds. Let's get started.
Okay, so first things first, right? Before you even think about lighting a fire, it's all about the prep. And that starts with the crawfish. This particular guide, they're working with about 36 pounds of live crawfish.
36 pounds. Okay. And step one is cleaning them. Now, this guide, it sounds like they keep it pretty simple.
Yeah, very straightforward. They basically just hose them down really well in a seafood basket. Just, wash off the mud, any debris.
They do mention another way, though, right? Something about letting them sit in water.
Uh-huh. They mention that some people do that, let the dead ones float, maybe add salt to purge them, supposedly. But what's interesting here is they specifically don't do that. They just rinse.
So simplicity wins out in this case, just a good wash.
Yeah, seems like it. It kind of highlights there are different schools of thought. This one values just getting them clean quickly.
Makes sense. Less fuss. So once they're rinsed, you got to get them out of those sacks. And they mention that's not always easy.
Yeah, they say it can be a bit of a struggle, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Wrestling those big, wet sacks probably helps to have a buddy.
Definitely sounds like a two-person job.
Yeah.
Okay, so crawfish are rinsed and ready in the basket. What's next? The pot.
Exactly. Setting up the pot,
Yeah.
getting the water in. For their 36 pounds, they suggest filling the pot maybe about halfway full.
Halfway. But they point out that level's going to come way up once you add everything else, right?
Oh, yeah, dramatically. The crawfish, the potatoes, everything displaces water. And, this is where experience really comes in, getting a feel for just how much water to start with so you don't end up overflowing later. It's a bit of a judgment call.
Right. And there's a practical side to that, too. They mentioned more water takes longer to boil.
Yep. Longer to boil, and you're just burning through more propane to heat all that extra water. So finding that sweet spot, it's about capacity, sure, but it's also about efficiency.
Gotcha. Okay, so water's in the pot. Now we start building the flavor.
That's it, building that flavor base. And according to this guide, the very first things that go into the water are onions and potatoes.
Onions and potatoes first. Why is that?
Simple reason. They just take the longest to cook. You need them to be tender by the time the crawfish are done boiling.
Okay, that makes sense. Get them started early.
Yeah.
Now, what about the actual seasoning? This guide talks about that a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. The person doing the boil, they actually talk about their own sort of journey with seasoning. Sounds like they've tinkered quite a bit over the years.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, trying different pre-made brands, trying to make their own blend from scratch. They even mentioned hearing about people using like weird stuff like gravy powder sometimes.
Gravy powder. Wow.
Yeah. So it really shows, finding your perfect boil seasoning. It's often a personal quest for people who do this a lot.
It's not just following a recipe card then. It's more of an evolution. So what did they end up using for this particular boil?
For this one, they settled on a specific brand, Cajun Land Seafood Boil. And they used the whole container for that one sack, the 36 pounds.
The entire thing.
Oh.
Okay. It sounds like it's going to have some kick.
Definitely. And they give a really important practical warning about that. When you're pouring that spicy powder in, be careful, especially if it's windy.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Apparently, inhaling that spicy dust is, well, let's just say not pleasant at all. A harsh experience is how they put it.
Yikes. Okay, mental note. Don't inhale the seasoning. Good tip. Do they add anything else at this stage? Like garlic or anything?
They mentioned that sometimes people do add garlic or mushrooms maybe, but in this boil, nope, they keep it pretty focused. Onions, potatoes, seasoning.
All right, so water, veggies, seasoning are all in the pot. Time to light it up.
Time for the heat. They describe lighting the burner, standard stuff using a barbecue lighter, maybe a long match or a bit of paper towel. You just crack the regulator valve slightly.
Listen for that hiss.
Exactly. Listen for the gas hiss, then light it and turn it up. Standard safety procedure.
And how do you know when it's actually boiling? Is there a clear sign?
Yeah, the sign they look for is pretty obvious. Just seeing steam coming off the pot, pretty good. That means it's hit the boil.
Okay. And once it is boiling, do you just leave it crank up?
No, actually, they give another one of those efficiency tips here. Once you've got a rolling boil, you can actually turn the flame down a bit.
Oh, okay. Why?
Well, you just need to maintain the boil, right? You don't need it roaring super high anymore. Turning it down keeps it boiling, but saves you some propane.
Smart. Conserve the fuel.
Yeah.
So it's boiling, potatoes and onions are cooking away.
Mm-hmm.
What's the trigger for the next big step?
The trigger is those potatoes. You gotta wait until they start getting soft. That's the critical check.
How do you check? Just fish one out?
Yep, you pull one out carefully, test how tender it is. When those potatoes are soft, that's the green light. That tells you the pot is ready for the main event.
Which is adding the crawfish.
Exactly. Potatoes are tender. Time to lower that whole basket of live crawfish right into the boiling, seasoned water.
Okay, the moment of truth. How long do the crawfish actually cook for?
In this particular method, the recommended time is about 15 minutes once they go in.
15 minutes. And what about the other stuff people often have, like corn or sausage? When does that go in?
Right, good question. Those get added later in the process, more towards the end of that 15-minute crawfish cook time.
Why later?
Well, the corn, it cooks really fast, doesn't need much time at all. And the sausage, it's usually already cooked, right? So it mostly just needs to heat through and, crucially, absorb all that spicy flavor from the water.
Okay, so let me get the sequence right. Onions and potatoes go in first with the seasoning. Bring to a boil, wait for potatoes to soften, then add the crawfish basket for about 15 minutes. And maybe in the last 5 minutes or so, that 15, you add the corn and sausage?
Yeah, something like that. Towards the end of the 15 minutes is the key takeaway for the corn and sausage. Once that total cook time is up, first thing you do is turn off the propane burner.
Cut the heat. But wait, it's not done yet, is it? There's another step here that sounds kind of important. Hosing them down.
Yes. This is a really interesting transition. They specifically mention hosing down the crawfish while they're still in the basket right after turning off the heat.
And why do they do that?
It does two really important things. First, it cools everything down quickly. But second, and this is critical, it stops the cooking process immediately. You don't want those crawfish to just sit there in the residual heat and get mushy or overcooked.
Ah, okay. Stops the cooking.
Yeah.
Smart. And then comes the soak, right? This seems like a big deal in this guide.
Oh, it's huge. This guide really emphasizes the soak. After hosing them down, they let the crawfish sit in that seasoned water off the heat, remember, for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. And that's purely for flavor.
That's exactly it. That soaking time is when the crawfish, as they cool down a bit, really absorb all that amazing seasoning from the boil water. This is apparently where they get packed with that signature spicy, savory flavor.
Okay, so the soak is crucial. Can you adjust that time? Like soak longer for more flavor?
They do say you can adjust it, yeah. You can go a bit shorter or longer, and this is a really key warning they give, the longer you soak them.
Let me guess. Saltier.
You got it. The longer the soak, the saltier they're going to get. It's a direct trade-off, they point out. More soak time equals more flavor, yes, but also more salt.
Finding that balance sounds tricky. Okay, so after the 20-minute soak, what's left?
Just the final step. Lifting that basket out of the pot and letting everything drain really well. And they make a point of saying, you know, how heavy that basket is now, packed with 36+ pounds of soaked crawfish, potatoes, corn, sausage. It's hefty.
I bet. Okay, wow. So if we just walk through this specific approach one more time, the sequence is pretty clear. Prep the crawfish with that simple rinse.
Set up the pot water, add the onions and potatoes first.
Add the seasoning, the whole container of Cajun land in this case.
Bring it all to a boil. Wait for those potatoes to get soft.
Add the crawfish basket. Boil for about 15 minutes.
Throw in the corn and sausage towards the end of that 15 minutes.
Turn off the heat. Hose them down immediately to stop the cooking.
And then that crucial 20-minute soak to let them absorb maximum flavor.
Watching out for the saltiness if you go longer.
Right. And finally, lift, drain, and serve.
So why go through this specific play-by-play? Well, I think understanding this process, like from someone actually doing it, it really demystifies the whole thing, doesn't it? Whether you're thinking about trying your own boil, or maybe you just want to appreciate the work that goes into it next time you're lucky enough to be at one.
Yeah, it gives you those practical insights, the little tricks, the reasoning behind why things are done a certain way, stuff you might not get from just a list of ingredients and times, and makes it feel more achievable, you know? rooted in actual practice.
Definitely. And thinking about those details, especially that emphasis on the 20-minute soak for flavor, but also that very clear warning about, going too long and making them too salty,
Mm.
it really leaves you with a bit of a puzzle, doesn't it?
Like, for anyone aiming for that perfect boil, how do you really hit that sweet spot? Is there one single perfect soak time? Or is finding that peak flavor point without tipping over into too salty territory always going to be this careful negotiation? Kind of based on your own taste, maybe even slight differences batch to batch. It really makes you appreciate the art involved, not just the steps.